Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Aaron, and if there's one thing I've always believed in, it's supporting the people I love, especially not my wife, Jane. She had big dreams, and I was right there beside her, pushing her forward, cheering her on, doing whatever I could to help her reach the top. I never saw that as a weakness. If anything, I thought it made me a good husband. But life has a way of proving you wrong in ways you never see coming. Looking back now, I can't help but wonder, was I blind? Too trusting? Or was I just a fool who believed that love and loyalty were enough? See, when you give someone your full trust, you never expect them to betray it. But that's exactly what happened. I'm not here to sugarcoat anything or make myself look good. I'm just here to tell you the way it happened, exactly how I lived it. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that life doesn't care about what you think is fair. It doesn't care about the effort you put in or the sacrifices you make. Jane and I met in college, and from the very beginning, it was obvious. She was different. Jane was laser-focused on her future, always talking about her career goals, the kind of job she wanted, the level of success she aimed to reach. She wasn't just ambitious, she was determined, and I admired that about her. I never saw myself as the type to feel threatened by a woman's success. If anything, I wanted to be the one standing in her corner, helping her reach any height she set her sights on. That's just how I was wired. Maybe it was because of how I grew up. My mom was an incredibly smart woman, but she always talked about how marriage had held her back. She felt like she could have done more, gone further, if she hadn't had the weight of family responsibilities slowing her down. That stuck with me. I promised myself that when I got married, I wouldn't be the reason my wife ever felt like she had to choose between me and her dreams. So when Jane's career started taking off, when she had to work late nights, travel for seminars, take on extra courses to stay ahead, I didn't complain. I told myself, this is what I signed up for. I'd come home to an empty house more often than not, eat dinner alone, and sometimes go to bed without her beside me. Yeah, I felt lonely, but I convinced myself it was temporary, a necessary sacrifice. I wasn't one of those insecure men who needed their wife to be home all the time to feel like a man. I took pride in the fact that she was out there making a name for herself. If people called me a simp for that, so be it. I didn't care. She was my wife, and she deserved to be the best. But that was not how the story ends. One weekend afternoon, I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, probably checking emails, when a notification popped up. A message from a number I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it was one of those spam messages, but when I clicked on it, I froze. It was short, just a few words. Your wife is cheating on you. For a second, I just stared at the screen. Then, just as quickly as I opened it, I deleted it. I didn't even think twice about it. People talk and people lie. I knew that better than anyone. Jane was climbing the ranks in her company. And the higher you go, the more enemies you make. That's just how it works. I figured it was someone at work, probably a jealous coworker, or some guy she turned down, trying to stir up drama. And honestly, I wasn't about to entertain that nonsense. I had no reason to doubt my wife. I shrugged it off, convinced myself it was nothing, and moved on with my day like it never happened. Weeks passed, and I had almost forgotten about that strange message. Life went on as usual. Jane was busy with work, I handled things at home, and we barely had time for long conversations. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed again. It was the same unknown number. My first thought? Not this nonsense again. But when I opened the message, my stomach dropped. This time, it wasn't just words. It was photos. Jane, standing way too close to a man I recognized from the few times I visited her office. He was one of the top executives, someone she worked with closely. In one picture, they were at a restaurant, sitting side by side. In another, they were at what looked like a hotel lobby, Jane's hand resting on his arm. And then there was the one that got to me the most. Her laughing, her eyes locked on his. For a few seconds, I just stared at the screen, my mind racing. I exhaled sharply, shook my head, and replied to the sender. I told them to mind their own business. I didn't entertain it or ask for explanations, didn't even let doubt settle in. As far as I was concerned, this was just someone trying to stir up drama where there was none. I still trusted my wife blindly. I remember exactly where I was when I got that third message. It had been weeks since the last one, and honestly, I had convinced myself that ignoring the situation was the right thing to do. Life was easier that way. But then, my phone buzzed, and there it was, another message from the same unknown number. I hesitated before opening it, not knowing that whatever was inside would ruin the fragile hope I had been holding on to. This time, there weren't just photos. The sender introduced herself. My name is Sandra. I'm the wife of the man your wife is cheating with. I just sat there in disbelief. I didn't know this woman. I had never met her. So why the hell was she messaging me? What did she stand to gain from this? A part of me wanted to believe it was some elaborate lie. Maybe she was a jealous coworker, someone who had a personal grudge against Jane or her husband. People do crazy things when they're bitter. But then, the next messages came in. Screenshots. Long exchanges between my wife and this man. Messages that were too intimate. Late-night conversations. Things a married woman shouldn't be saying to another man. My hands felt clammy as I scrolled through them. And then came the worst part. A photo. Jane and him. In bed. I stopped breathing for a second. My eyes locked on the screen, unable to look away. I wanted to find something, anything, that could explain this away. But then, Sandra sent the metadata. The timestamp. The location. The date. It was from the work event Jane had attended. The same event she had told me was just for networking and team building. The event where she had texted me, saying she was exhausted and going to bed early. She hadn't gone to bed alone. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at my phone, my mind completely blank. But then, another thought hit me. Why was Sandra telling me all this? She had all the evidence to end her own marriage if she wanted to. She could have gone straight to her husband, confronted him, filed for divorce. Instead, she was coming to me. I finally typed out a response. Why are you telling me this? What do you want from me? Her reply came almost instantly. Because you deserve to know the truth. That was the moment everything changed. My wife was cheating on me, and now I had to decide what to do next. I struggled emotionally for days. I didn't need a private investigator or follow her around to catch her in the act. Sandra had laid everything out in front of me, piece by piece, until there was no room for doubt. And yet, I still couldn't wrap my head around it. How did we get here? I kept asking myself the same questions, but no answer gave me peace. Should I confront her now? Should I wait? Was there even a way to fix this? I wasn't naive. I knew trust once broken rarely gets rebuilt. But after everything we'd been through, could I just throw it all away? But had she not already thrown it away long before I even knew? I knew that if it came down to divorce, I'd have no problem getting custody of our child. Jane barely had time to be home as it was. The courts would see that. But this wasn't just about custody or lawyers or legal battles. This was about my life being shattered, my reality shifting into something I never expected. I was married to a woman I didn't recognize anymore. And yet, I kept my emotions locked up. On the outside, nothing changed. I still moved through my days, handling work, going through the motions like I always had. But inside, it was eating me alive. I'd sit at the dinner table with Jane, watching her act like nothing had changed, while I sat there knowing the truth. Weeks passed, and I still didn't have an answer. I was stuck between action and hesitation, not knowing what would hurt more, confronting her or waiting for her to dig her own grave. But then, the decision was made for me. The company party changed everything. One night, Jane told me about their company evening party, but also said she wasn't going. It was just a casual conversation over dinner. That didn't sit right with me. Jane was the kind of woman who thrived in professional settings. She lived for networking, for climbing higher, for making connections that could push her forward. And these company parties? They weren't just social events for her. They were opportunities. She never missed them. Not once. But I didn't press her on it. I just nodded and let it go. If she didn't want to go, that was her choice. Who was I to question it? Besides, I had my own work to focus on. I had a busy day on that day, meetings lined up, and I wasn't going to be home much either. So, I left it alone. Fast forward to the afternoon of the party's day, my phone buzzed, and when I checked it, I saw another message from Sandra. I opened it immediately. By now, I knew that when Sandra messaged me, it was something I needed to see. The message was a screenshot. Jane and her boss, the executive, texting back and forth, making plans. Not for a meeting, not for work, but for that night. The same night, she told me she wasn't going to the company party. I immediately called her. The phone rang. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. And at that moment, everything clicked. I wasn't confused anymore. I knew exactly what was going on. I put my phone down, exhaled, and just sat there for a moment. So, I made my decision. I was going to the party. When I got there and stepped into the venue, the place was alive with laughter and clinking glasses. I knew a few people here, had met some of them at past work events, and most importantly, I was a man on a mission. My wife was supposed to be at home, as she told me weeks back. But according to the text I got earlier, she was here. And she wasn't alone. I moved through the crowd, keeping my face neutral, casual. I greeted a few familiar faces, asking in passing if they had seen Jane. Each time, the answer was the same. Yes, she was here earlier. That confirmed it. Now I just had to find her. I made my way through the ballroom, scanning every table, every group, every corner. Nothing. After what felt like forever, I stopped a waiter who was carrying a tray of champagne flutes. "Hey, have you seen Jane?" "Jane Miller," I asked, keeping my voice steady. He barely thought before answering. "I think she stepped out into the hallway," he said, nodding toward the back of the venue. I walked toward the hallway, my legs moving faster than my mind could process. The further I went, the quieter it got. The sounds of the party faded, muffled by the thick walls. The hallway lights were dim, casting long shadows against the floor. And then, at the far end of the corridor, I saw them. Jane. And him. They were close. I didn't need to be a genius to know what was happening. 100 thoughts crashed into me all at once, but before I could stop myself, her name slipped from my mouth. Jane. She flinched like she had been electrocuted. The executive turned sharply, his face flashing from shock to guilt in a matter of seconds. Jane's eyes widened, her mouth opening slightly, but no words came out. For a split second, the world felt frozen. I wonder how long had this been going on? How many times had I sat at home, thinking she was working late, while she was really with him? I didn't have an answer, and at that moment, I didn't need one. I turned around and walked away. I didn't say a word. I didn't ask for explanations. There was nothing left to say. I sat on the couch, lost in thought. Jane finally came home. She walked in, dropped her purse, and stood there for a moment, staring at me. Then, with the most emotionless voice, she said, "It was just a one-time thing." I wanted to laugh at how ridiculous that sounded, but I didn't. She just stood there, arms crossed, like she was bracing for impact. So, I pulled out my phone. I didn't say a word. I just swiped through the pictures, the texts, the proof that had been eating me alive for months. Then, I turned the screen toward her and I watched her face closely. She didn't have a comeback. No more excuses. No more fake apologies. Just silence. And in that moment I knew there was nothing left to save. I had spent years believing in her, pushing her forward, trusting that we were a team. But now all I could think about was how easily she had thrown that away, and how easy I had made it for her. I had built my whole marriage on the idea that support meant sacrifice, that if I truly loved Jane, I had to step back and let her grow, even if that meant being alone more times than not. And maybe that was my biggest mistake, thinking that just because I was willing to put her first, she would do the same for me. But I was wrong. I gave her freedom, and she used it to betray me. And the worst part? She never would have stopped. If I hadn't caught her, if Sandra hadn't sent me those messages, Jane would have kept lying to my face, coming home late, kissing me goodnight with the same mouth. A few days after I walked in on them, I got an update from Sandra. She was filing for divorce. While I was sitting here, trying to process everything, trying to figure out if I should fight for this marriage or let it go, She had already accepted that her husband was beyond saving. And somehow, that made everything clearer for me. It was just a matter of time before I walked away too. One of the biggest lessons I learned was that blind trust can destroy you. People always say that trust is the foundation of a good marriage, but I don't think that's the full truth. Trust without accountability? That's just an invitation to be played for a fool. Looking back, I see how I let my love for Jane turn into something else, something unhealthy. I wasn't just being a supportive husband. I was putting her needs, her goals, her career above my own self-respect. I convinced myself that I was being a good man by giving her the space to grow, by not questioning things, by making excuses for her distance. But supporting your partner should never mean sacrificing your dignity. Love should be a two-way street. The moment you start feeling like you're the only one making sacrifices, that's the moment you need to stop and really think about what's happening. And let's be real, cheating isn't something that just happens out of nowhere. It's not a one-time mistake. It's a pattern of choices, a series of decisions where someone has the chance to stop but doesn't. Jane didn't trip and fall into an affair. She made a choice to text that man. She made a choice to meet up with him. She made a choice to lie to me, to sneak around, to betray everything we built together. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over time, and I was too blind or too hopeful to see it for what it was. So now I have to ask you, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? If you got that first anonymous message, would you have ignored it like I did? If your wife or husband was coming home late all the time, acting distant, would you have brushed it off? Or would you have started paying attention sooner? I want to know, would you have seen the truth before it was too late? And that brings me to the last thing I keep asking myself, the thought that won't leave my head. I believed I was doing the right thing. But in the end, was I?